Former United States Ambassador to the United Nations and former National Security Advisor in the Trump administration, John Bolton, joins me. Good evening, sir.
Glad to be with you.
Well, it certainly sounds like everybody's mad at everybody. We're getting, threatening words from the sister of Kim Jong-un. We've got President Xi all bent out of shape, as well as his foreign minister. So any thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, what a delightful group of people. Look, this is all very carefully thought out rhetoric by each of the three people you've named. Just to start with Xi Jinping, what he's doing is laying a propaganda basis to justify what China itself has already been doing for the last 15 years and is doing increasingly, which is building a larger and larger military capability. So all this talk about containment and oppression by the United States, if only we were that good, this is a way for him to say, I wouldn't have done this but for the United States, which is just flatly untrue. And as for his foreign minister, this is part of what in China they call wolf warrior diplomacy. It's a very aggressive style of rhetoric and confrontation. It's much like North Korea. Maybe they learned it from them. But it's also a reflection of how confident China is. Back in the day of Deng Xiaoping, when they began market reforms that allowed the economy to grow to help support this military expansion they're engaged in, Deng Xiaoping called for a policy of what was known as hide and bide. Hide your capabilities and bide your time. So it sounded like China was engaged in a peaceful rise, everything was fine. People in the United States thought there was no political risk to invest in China. Now when the mask comes off and we get wolf warrior diplomacy, which I think is actually the accurate statement of China wants to do, people say, my goodness, relations have worsened between Beijing and Washington. Absolutely not true. They were bad before, we just didn't get it. Now we're being told directly relations are bad. Hopefully it will help us wake up. And as for North Korea, it was a big mistake for the Trump administration to unilaterally give up joint military exercises with South Korea. Those exercises help make our troops safer, make South Korea safer, and really demonstrate to North Korea that their rhetoric isn't going to shake us. So now that the sister's the chief propaganda officer, maybe it'll get even better.
I'm not suggesting in any way by my next comment that we should be soft on China. I mean, I do a segment night after night about China, whether it's competition or whether it's threatening us, whether it's Taiwan or whatever. But the one thing that does seem to be missing from this whole calculus and why we seem to have an acceleration of words is it doesn't seem like we're even talking. I think you can be tough. I think you'd be, and I can think you can lay down the law, but I worry when there's no communication, when even they're comparable to our Secretary of Defense wouldn't take Secretary Austin's phone call. I thought that was profoundly, a bad sign, because at least if you're at the table talking, you may not agree and you may say tough words, but I don't, this exchange of rhetoric right now, I think is worrisome. Am I wrong?
Well, I think it depends on how far they're prepared to push it. It's certainly not, at least with respect to this administration, for want of trying to get the Chinese to talk. I mean, John Kerry has spent 2 years desperately trying to get negotiations on climate change, basically without success. The example you give of Secretary Austin, I think, is a very good one. During the worst times, keeping military-to-military communications alive, limited to military issues, but to have professional exchanges at top levels of the military is a sign that there's some normality left in the relationship. And this is clearly China being the one to say, we're not going to talk at all. And Secretary of State Blinken, every chance he gets at G20 meetings or any place else, tries to talk to the Chinese, tries to talk to the Russians. Whether it's well-advised or poorly advised, this time it's very clear it's China that's cutting off the conversation.
All right, let me play the parlor game that we love to play in Washington. I read a while ago that you had not closed the door, maybe wrong, on running for president in 2024. So let me ask you this. Have you closed the door, opened the door, considering it? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I'm still considering it, and in fact, I was really kind of moved again this Sunday when I heard that former Governor of Maryland Larry Hogan had decided he would not be a candidate for the Republican nomination. I have a lot of respect for Governor Hogan. He's a Republican who won in a Democratic state, Maryland, my home state where I live now. And I worried that his decision, and I fully understand it, but his decision not to run would take out a voice that really was making the case in a very professional way why Donald Trump shouldn't get the nomination of the Republican Party again. And my view is because he's not fit to be president. And I just thought losing that voice was unfortunate. And I think it's also unfortunate that more Republican candidates or would-be candidates aren't prepared to take Trump on. You know, a lot of people are worried that Trump will slip through to the nomination as he did in 2016 in a very crowded field. I think in hindsight, we can see one of the things that contributed to that outcome was all the other candidates criticized each other. They were afraid to criticize Trump. I think the right strategy is to explain to Republican voters why Trump shouldn't be president again, to go after him directly and see if there's not a way to knock him out of the fight very early. So all of that, I'm still rolling around. I do think there's no urgent time pressure to make a decision. In part, it depends on what some other potential candidates do. So I'm still thinking about this. The door is still wherever it was before.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Still ahead, speaking of former President Trump, has he already decided on his vice president running mate? Well, start guessing. That when the record continues.